How do you build an 8-figure company in a highly competitive product category? Today's guests own a soap business. I have a cousin, a friend, and at least a dozen people on my Facebook feed that also own soap businesses. Our guests have a better product, sure, but it takes more than that to win in a competitive space. And they share their story today on how they built up not only their soap business, but their new face cream as well.
Are you looking for new ways to make your sales grow? You've tried other podcasts, but they don't seem to know. Harvest the growth potential of your product or service as we share stories and strategies that'll make your competitors nervous. Now, here's the host of the Harvest Growth Podcast, John LeClaire.
Welcome back to the show today. I'm really excited to be speaking with two partners and founders, or really the owners of Amish Farms Soap. They have built an incredible 8-figure business around this line of soap, face creams, and other products. And we're going to talk about how they made it so successful and understand their products a little bit better. But first, I want to welcome both of you to the show. Steve and George, thanks for joining us today.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you guys on with us. So let's talk about, well, actually, I want to share my personal experience if I can first. So you guys are certainly the experts on Amish Farms Soap, the face cream, why they're different and better. And I do want to dive into that. But for the benefit of our audience, these are amazing products. So there's two that I've been using. So one is a bar soap, which is really how their business, I believe, started, or at least the first big success. And they sell a ton of these across all channels. And we'll talk about the business, but it's a hand cut, handmade bar soap that is very healthy. I love it. It's like I've transferred everything to this in my own kind of like, showering, washing at home, etc. And then I'm not personally a face cream user, as I assume a lot of men aren't, right? But I have started using this, and I'm getting older. And man, I probably need it more. I live in Colorado, as my audience knows. It's dry out here. It's been a game changer too. And there's so many benefits. I will tell you personally, for me, my complexion has really kind of softened, if that's the right word. Like it's not hard and dry like it often gets in the winter. At my age, I'm embarrassed to say, but I still get acne here and there, and it's crazy. You'd think it'd be done by now, but it's really helped with that problem, both the soap as well as the face cream. So for me personally, I just can't say enough about it. Total game changer products, and I'm excited to be speaking with the owners of the company that lead this and run it and have developed this and really got it out to the market to be able to share with our audience and people like.
Thank you for those nice words.
Absolutely. So I'm going to turn the time over to you guys now to talk about why are they so good. I can say they're great, but I don't know why, right, as well as you do. So can you describe, maybe let's talk about the bar soap first. So that's your bigger seller of these two items, at least so far, just because it's been around longer. But what is it about it that makes it so good and so much better than other soaps on the market?
Ours is mainly made of natural. We don't use a lot of chemicals if we don't have to, we really focus on natural ingredients and stuff, and I don't know why a lot of these soap companies have to put all these nasty chemicals because you don't need them. Steve is working on a fragrance free and dye free, and that's really a good product.
And as we meet, in early 2025 right now, it feels like chemicals in our foods and in our beauty products are much more part of the conversation in our country right now than they have been for a long time, for a lot of reasons. Politics is one of them right now, right? But as we think about that, I don't want to be ingesting chemicals. I also don't want to be putting them on my skin any more than I have to. Can you guys talk about what are some of the ingredients in the bar soap specifically that make it work so well?
Thing about these days, like you said, with the politics and everything, a lot of these big soap companies, I won't mention any names, obviously, but a lot of the big soap, they say, hey, this is made in America. It might be packaged in America. It might get here and it gets packaged, but the ingredients all comes from overseas, comes from China. Ours is manufactured. Everything is made right here in the United States, and it's right here in the heartland in South Dakota. And Steve is over there in Alabama. A couple of very good states. So through Colorado as well. And we pride ourselves on that. And the big natural ingredients is that I don't think a lot of people use is bentonite clay, and bentonite clay has a lot of benefits for your skin. It's unbelievable, and that's how we kind of got started. And I think that's one of the big keys of our success is bentonite clay. I hate to say that because I don't want everybody else using bentonite clay in their products. Is all of a sudden everybody's selling a soap with bentonite clay, but they don't. And I don't know why. With our great success, it's really a good process.
And on my side, the key and what your conversation is, I'm making a fragrance-free, dye-free product, and we just launched it literally 3 weeks ago, and it has been off the charts successful. And it's all natural ingredients: coconut oil, shea butter, castor oil. Again, has the bentonite clay in it, and it has just taken off, especially with the younger generation as well.
That's awesome. You mentioned that is a brand new product. How long has the rest of the business been around? How long have you guys been selling these soaps?
Well, I started about 20 years ago, and then we just kind of plugging along as best we could, and then I met Steve, and the partnership was a match made in heaven. I mean, it really took things to another level once I met Steve. Because I was doing everything myself. I was manufacturing, I was marketing, I was selling, I was doing everything myself. And, you can't really keep up with that, one person. And it was the right time. We weren't really ready when Steve and I met, about 5 years ago. We weren't really, I wasn't ready up until that point. And it was perfect timing and the perfect storm when him and I got together. And, as all success stories goes, it was, it was just everything was really perfect, and we kind of fell backwards into it. I mean, the way he just called me out of the blue, and he wanted to buy a couple of pallets, and like Steve says, this guy conned me into buying a whole semi-load. Wasn't that what you said, Steve? And so he bought a semi-load, and it's been just every month is more and more and more successful.
Yeah, our skill sets totally complement each other. In May of 2021 is when I didn't dip my toe. I went head first into the entire operation, and it's been pretty much nonstop since then. No, it's better than nonstop. It has grown double every year.
Exponentially, and it definitely has. I mean, we went from. I don't want to say I didn't start this as a joke, but I didn't start it, and I never realized that it was going to ever be this big. It just started it to make a little extra money and start a little business, and kind of a side hustle really is how I started it. But it's sure ain't no side hustle anymore, Steve. And it's a magical combination between two of the perfect people meeting each other. We're totally opposite people. He's more professional and college smart, and I'm more street smart, and I'm more of a guy that gets in, and I like building all my own equipment. I've made everything myself. I get out there and I get a welder and a torch in my hand, and I manufacture all our equipment. That's how I started. And I would rather do that than sit in an office. And me and Steve are really opposite. But boy, I'll tell you, us coming together has formed a really successful business.
And I also think the key is that we have nothing is going to get in our way attitude. If something breaks, guess what? We figure it out and make it work.
Absolutely. I think it's great advice. Anybody that might be listening that is either in a partnership or potentially considering one is, you got to find, whether it's a partner or whether it's employees, as you build your organizations, to find people that complement your skill sets, right? As entrepreneurs in the early days, you kind of have to do it all by yourself, right? Like in the very early days, usually, right? Unless you got a lot of funding from day one or whatever. And so you get used to that and you think you can do it all. And as entrepreneurs, you guys are very successful entrepreneurs. Yeah, you can do it, right? But you're going to do it much better if you find people that we can't be great at everything, right? So work what you're great at and then bring in other people, partners or employees to help round it out, right? To round out your skill sets. And as you guys have done, it's taken off.
Exactly. And Steve and I are the perfect combination from that. I didn't know that when I met him. He took a chance with me and I took a chance with him, and it just accidentally, really, right, Steve? I mean, it accidentally grew into this, and now we've got a multi-million-dollar company that's going to go beyond that.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
That's right. You say that, but you guys have been so smart in everything you've done in this business so far. To build your business into an 8-figure business, no matter what it is, it takes, a little bit of luck, right? We all have to have that in our lives, but it takes a lot of hard work, skill, and a great product to really get there. And it really is, as you said, George, it is not a joke. This is no joke to get to that level. Let's talk about, so what was the first success you had? Again, we're staying kind of on the bar soap, the original one that took off. We'll get back to the face cream in a minute, but what was the first success that really started to skyrocket the growth?
Yeah, I would say it would have probably been around the year 2000. I come from a retail background for most of my life, and I wanted to get the soap into the grocery store format. And where I used to own grocery stores, I hooked up with a broker friend of mine, and then that's how I started. I got it I go into the distribution centers, not the grocery stores individually. And I was able to get into a grocery store chain that had 380 stores. So they have different things, free distribution and all that. So I did a free distribution where I gave the distribution center a case of soap, and that got me into their stores. And then it just kind of took off from there. And then in 2021, that's when I hooked up with my broker hooked this up with me with an influencer. And she's an hour from where my factory and warehouse is. And we're like best friends now. So we launched, and it was May of 2021. I remember it was the Monday after Mother's Day. And it's been a trajectory like this ever since, between her and George and me and, adding new products, et cetera. It has gone through the roof.
We've talked a lot about your business, of course, and your relationship with Brenda, your influencer that you work so much with, and you always call her your friend. I thought you guys were friends first. This is the first time I've heard actually that it was kind of referred over, and it's great to hear. I think, when you've got a solid relationship like that and you have become very close friends, and it's been this, I think, symbiotic relationship where, you bring in great products to her and she helps you guys grow, and that's awesome.
Well, when we sat down at the meeting to discuss an influencer opportunity, she at that point in time, she had 2 million followers. Now she's got almost 4 million followers. And she had her attorney there, her son-in-law, who was a district attorney. And then we just started talking and we hit it off until now. She supports mainly Alabama businesses, which this is an Alabama business, but I'm not from Alabama. I'm from New Hampshire. So when she asked me that question, she stood up and goes, "You're a Yankee?" I thought the deal was done. But that was just her humor, we sat back down and we've been like best friends since then.
And what really helps too is that we all believe in the product. Brenda believes in the product, and Brenda would not have influenced it, and she wouldn't be promoting if she hadn't tried herself and believed in it.
Yeah. Well, that was the key. You had to give her the product. She had to test it, and I mean, she was hooked on it.
I think when our audience hears influencer, a lot of them might be thinking, a 20-something-year-old girl that, is always wearing outfits to show off things, whatever it might be. This kind of like, heavy music and intense graphics and all this kind of stuff. And there is that side of the influencer world. Brenda's on another side, which is, I would call more real, right? And I think it's important to realize that there are other influencers out there, right? Because a lot of business owners might be thinking like, I can't sell my product to 20-year-olds, right? It doesn't make sense for it's not the right audience or whatever. But there are influencers that fit really any category, any age group, any target. Would you mind just, I guess, describe what her content looks like normally? Like, who is Brenda? What type of content does she do? And how does that fit with your brand?
Well, her primary is a cooking show. And she has 3 people that she likes, and she does a video for them and talks about the product. But she's a cooking show, Christian background, so she reaches that target audience. She's just real genuine. She reminds me of your grandmother, and that's what most people say. And, everything she talks about is resonates with them because it's like talking with their grandmother. And even the older generation thinks about their grandmother, and she's just real honest, real down to earth. She'll give a little sermon kind of during it, but primarily it's a cooking show. And she's already got 3 cookbooks out. I was just over her house a couple of days ago, and she's going to be doing a tabletop book. So very successful, but just really kind, gentle, real. That'd probably be the best word if she's real.
I love that word. I use it all the time for influencers. And I think it's what makes, whether it's influencers or pitch people, talent, but it's being genuine or being real makes, I think, all the difference. And, my audience, they've heard my story many times about working with Billy Mays back in the day, right? And how much I learned from him. And it's interesting. We did a lot of market research or focus groups and tried to figure out, yes, he was exciting and energetic and got your attention. But what really people resonated with was the fact that he sounded real and genuine, even though he's doing what they call yell and sell, right? It was clearly a pitch man, but you felt like he believed in what he was selling. And that's a hard quality to come across. And I think a lot of quote unquote influencers feel very salesy, right? They feel like you watch their videos, you can tell they're just trying to sell you something. And I think that's a great learning. Brenda's a good example of being different than that and finding, again, she's not going to be the right one for everybody that's listening, but finding a connection with talent, pitchman, or an influencer that is real, that is genuine, that is sharing a story with their audience that they truly believe in, it doesn't feel like a pitch, right? It doesn't feel like a sales pitch. It makes all the difference.
Well, and exactly right with her. We right from the beginning had an agreement that this was not going to be where she was trying to force our product down their throats. It was conversational. She would either start off the video with it or embed it somewhere in there. Like she could be cooking something and then she goes over to wash her hands and there's the bag of soap and she talks about the soap for a couple of seconds and that was it. But the people saw it, and they wanted to know what she was using. It wasn't like she was trying to sell it. She was just talking about it. There are points in time like where she will do some selling, if you will, but even then it's not, like Billy Mays selling. It's just, she was just talking about it.
Yeah, no, I've seen her lots of times and she doesn't sell it. She just uses it, and yeah, it is pretty neat.
She actually did a video one time with one of her friends and showing, because it does have some really good healing properties. And they did a before and after picture. And the before and after was just astonishing that the woman had such bad scaly things on her legs. So they did a before and after. And she wanted to post that video to show her, and her attorneys wouldn't let her do it because it was so drastic and you couldn't make that statement, even though the person was going to do it as a testimonial, But that's the level of how much she loves the product.
So that brings me to the question on a lot of consumer feedback you guys have gotten. I know you get customer emails or customers reaching out to you all the time saying what you've done or your products have done to help them. What are some examples? I know, there's only so many things we can put into like paid advertising, that sort of thing, but it's amazing to hear sometimes benefits that come across from real users and changes they've experienced in their lives. What are some of the stories you guys have heard?
Well, I mean, we have some of those testimonials are actually on the website, but I probably get 10 to 20 emails a day talking about, how it's helped them, their kids, their grandkids, whatever the case is. And primarily, I got into this whole thing, and I guess I can say this because my eczema was really bad. And I was actually selling it in one of my stores, and a guy says, "You need to use this," because I'm in Alabama. I live in shorts and a t-shirt, and I had eczema all over my legs. And I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you need to use it." And I'm telling you, John, I went home, tried it. A week later, I was about 80% eczema free. And from then on, I was hooked, which is the key thing. If I like the product, then it's an easy sell. So then it became, okay, let's go. As far as customers, I mean, my goodness, it's stories like that, and this one probably resonates the most is a lady it was middle of summer down here, and she had a long sleeve sweater on. And me being me, I just asked her, "Well, why are you wearing a sweater? It's 95 degrees out." And she goes, "My skin is so bad that I'm embarrassed to take my sweater off." So I gave her a bag of our soap, and then she came back 2 weeks later and she still had the sweater on. And I said, "It didn't work." And she pulls off her sweater. She's in a short sleeve blouse, and she goes, it changed my life. From a guy, you don't really think about it, but for a woman to be able to wear clothes that she could never wear before, she started crying on me. It was so touching. We're in the middle of a store and she's crying and saying how much it changed her life. That would probably be the biggest one that I could tell you in regards to customer testimonial.
No, we get really, really touching emails, thousands of them. The story is exactly like that. We are not saying that it helps for that, because you have to be. What did you say, Steve? You had to be.
It has to be certified and to be able to say these statements.
Has to be like certified for that, But so we're not saying it does, but we're saying that we get a lot of testimonials of people that say that it really, really works well, and personal experience with Steve and me. I got the same exact story as Steve does.
Yeah, that's literally how I got into the whole thing.
Yeah, I went through chemotherapy 15 years ago, and I had the same experience as that lady. I had the same experience as she did.
Yeah, I've heard that chemo can be, that's a common side effect, is just really dry, almost painful skin afterwards, right? So how was your experience with that? How long did it take to recover from that with the soap?
Not long at all. I mean, I've always used Amish Farms Soap, and I never had any problems with the people after surgery, after chemotherapy, after all that nightmare is done. And then the last thing you do is radiation to hit it and make sure it's gone for good, And when I was doing that, there was kind of like a group of people in a room doing that at the same time, all kind of waiting. And I was only, what was I, 39 years old at the time, and everybody else there was in their 60s and 70s, and I used to talk to them about it, and I wasn't promoting Amish Farm Soap with them, but it was a long time ago. But I was hearing all their stories about how dry their skin got, every single one of them. It's like, I got rashes, I can't do anything about it. We're using this and we're using that to help our skin, and I didn't have any problems. And I'm assuming it's because of that, during that time.
And I've had the same comments numerous times from our customer base.
The amazing thing after all this is I can imagine our audience thinking, well, yeah, sounds great, but this is probably going to be one of those crazy expensive skincare solutions, right? These beauty products, but the pricing is low, right? I encourage our audience, check out amishfarmsoap.com. The link is in the show notes, of course. You can find them on Amazon and retail stores as well. But you got to check it out to see the pricing. It's you'll be amazed, right? It's not expensive, especially when you consider all these benefits that are included with it. If I can change this topic a little bit, I want to talk about the face cream. So this is a newer product for you guys. So the face cream you guys are launching, or have launched, but it's fairly recent and already has been extremely successful. So we talked about the bar soap a little bit. The face cream, how is that different from other face creams that are on the market?
That was a project that probably George started on it for probably a year, and then when it was finally presented to me, we still went through a genesis with it, to improve it, make it better. We all sent it out to friends and family, and I probably had 200 that I gave it out to as samples for their feedback. And from the time that we started with that process, and 6 months later, we came up with that item right there. So it wasn't like a snap your finger, and I think that's what some of the people have to understand is some of these things, it takes, the product that I just launched, it was almost a year in R&D to get it to where I felt like it was the product that I wanted to sell. And that's no different than the face cream.
Yeah, and it is. I'll echo. I mentioned quickly in the beginning of this my personal experience with it. It's been phenomenal as well. And again, all natural. Beef tallow is a primary ingredient, and that's kind of a buzzword these days, even for cooking with tallow, but also beauty products with tallow. Can you talk about some of the properties or benefits of using tallow in beauty products?
Tallow seems like it's the boss of all beauty things right now. I personally wanted to go with like a Crisco oil, like a soybean oil type of thing, and everybody kind of talked me out of it. They're like, right now tallow is really trending. So I tried it myself, and as you could tell, I've probably got more age than both of you, and I've got some wrinkles, and it really does work. A combination between that and the vitamin E and the bentonite clay, it's fantastic. It's just a really good deal, And again, just like the soap, we've been getting thousands of emails from people, saying that right now it's hundreds, but the soap is thousands. But
I mean, Brenda is an important part of what we do. And so, I needed to make sure that it was something that she liked, because she's the one who's going to be talking to it, her 4 million Facebook fans. So I would give her a sample, and then she liked them, but it just wasn't right. I didn't think it was where it needed to be. And then we between George and me, we kept on upscaling it. Well, I finally gave her the final version of it, and her accountant was in there, and her accountant literally grabbed it out of her hand and started putting it all over her face and just took the jar and went home with it. It was that kind of a reaction in regards to how good it was working.
And you talked about it testing. So you shared it with people you knew, you shared it through Brenda, who's an important part of the team as well. But on top of that, you also reached out to your existing customer base, which you have the benefit of having a large email list from being in business so long and having so much success with the bar soap. How did you use your existing customer base to provide feedback for this new product launch?
Well, I have all kinds of different platforms that we use. So, sometimes you can get too much information. So I picked 20 out of each platform. So it was like 80 people, and of the 80, I got rave reviews other than one person. And that was because they were using it incorrectly. It's you don't slather it on, you literally just tap it, because it's that good. And if you slather it on, it gets the tallow by nature is a little on the greasy side. But that was the only comment that I had that was not positive. And then at that point in time, half of them were wholesalers that were going to resell it in their operation. So then I knew, okay, we got the item that we need.
The beauty of testing like that is negative feedback can be great, right? So if they're using it incorrectly, well, now you've learned, okay, maybe it's something we change in the instructions or make it more clear or whatever it might be, right? So even negative feedback, of course, can be really helpful, but it's nice to hear.
Well, yeah, but the negative comments is what got us to that point. Initially it was going to be just beef tallow, but it didn't smell right, and my wife particularly said, there's no way in God's green earth I'm putting that on my face because it didn't smell right, and then that went and brought us to a whole nother level of, okay, we're going to have to add this, and we add this, and, we changed a bunch of stuff around. I don't know, George, it probably took us, 5, 6, 7, 8 times till we find the right combination that wasn't too little, it wasn't too much, and then when we finally hit on it, it was like, okay, we got it.
Well, and you guys could test it with yourselves, with Brenda, maybe with a couple of others, and have great reactions. But I love that you tested with, I think you said 80 people in total, and I'm sure more beyond that as well. But because everyone's skin is different, right? Everyone's going to react differently to it. Everyone has different desires for it.
Yeah, we tested this thing for almost about a year and a half, 2 years came along. We were testing this thing, and it's just, like you said, it's the fragrance. And I was going to go straight vanilla flavoring, and then everybody says, "Oh, it smells like it smells like cake frosting. You can't use that," And so we went a little less vanilla, a little more orange peel, and we finally got the right deal there. I think we sure haven't had any complaints on the scent.
That's good. Yeah, no, it's a great product. And as I was saying, it's, when you test it with just yourselves, you might find out what you think is perfect. But when you involve others in it, you're going to hear comments coming back where maybe, you don't mind the scent, et cetera, but getting what's going to work for a larger group of people is going to help you to be more successful in the marketplace.
When you do that, you're looking for negative comments. You want the negative comments because you need to know what to change. That's why you're asking,
Well, but that's true for us. But some people, that's not the case. They want you to sugarcoat it and tell them how good it is. And you're not doing anybody any service if you do that. That's
true. Is there anything I didn't ask you guys that you think could be helpful for our audience?
I think probably the biggest thing for me when we started up, this is all going to entrepreneurs, the underlying thing is cash flow, and as you're trying to build this business up and, you have all these great ideas, but, you don't have the money to be able to do it to the level that you want to do it. So, you got to kind of pace yourself a little bit. I don't personally want investors. I want to be able to do it all by ourselves, and without that other person kind of helping you out, then you've got to you got to pay your employees and all the rest of that stuff. So, that was a labor of love in regards to how to kind of just, build it kind of slowly and organically until I got to the point where it was like, okay, now I can kind of, jettison it up a little bit because I was in a little better financial cash flow position.
That's great advice.
And that's the hardest part. I mean, any business that I ever had, cash flow is king. If you could have all the sales that you want, but if you don't have cash flow, not much you can do.
Very true. Yeah, it is king. It is key in every business that we do. I do want to tell our audience again, it's in the show notes, but go check them out at amishfarmsoap.com or look for them on Amazon, again, in your local retailer as well. And for our audience, did you know you can also meet with a member of my team absolutely free for a 30-minute strategy consultation? We've launched and grown hundreds of products since 2007. Learn some of our strategies while growing OxyClean back in the Billy Mays days. We're here to help. So please go to harvestgrowth.com and set up a call if you'd like to discuss further.